Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year, and welcome to an all-new edition of On the Mark TV and Radio from Westfield Community Programming, 89.5 FM WSKB, and our media sponsors at Agawam Media and Southwood Community Television. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach, and today, January 1st of 2025, a lot of us woke up thinking we're going to have some new resolutions, we're going to change our lives, we're going to make things different during the coming year. And with me this morning is Dina Dugan, who is a dietitian and nutritionalist at Bay State Noble Hospital in Westfield. And Dina, one of the things that people often say on New Year's Day, I'm going to make a resolution, I'm going to eat better, I'm going to lose 50 pounds, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And we both know that on the morning of January 2nd, a lot of those resolutions went out the window. Maybe it's because people think, well, I can start my resolutions on the 2nd, so I can eat whatever I want today on the 1st. And then there are others that are the traditionalists and say, you start that resolution on the 1st, and you're starting it today. First of all, I want to ask you, because you help people eat better and eat correctly. A lot of people set up weight loss goals for the new year, or I'm going to be vegan, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. And 90% of the people fail by the end of January. How reasonable can we set expectations for ourselves when it comes to a resolution about food?
I think setting reasonable recommendations for your reasonable resolutions for yourself. I actually don't really love the word resolution so much as intention. I think that we should set some positive intentions for ourselves and not make them gigantic and not make them a complete 180 from what it is you are used to. Because when we do that, we're setting ourselves up for failure. And the second, you may be able to sustain a giant change for a couple of days, but the second you fall off of that train, you're going to just throw it all into the trash. So I believe setting some small intentions is the way to go, and not setting too many at one time. I actually would recommend just one at a time.
A lot of people seem to put weight loss at the top of their list for a goal at the new year. What's reasonable to assume? I mean, some people, they see all these diets on TV and on TikTok and stuff like that. What's a reasonable way to lose weight?
Well, if that's your goal, that's your goal. I never make that my goal when I'm talking to people. I believe that you can point yourself in a better nutritional direction and aim to get activity. You can eat, so in a nutshell, you can eat healthier, you can move more. Eat healthier to improve your nutritional status, obviously, and then keep moving so that you are not getting stiff and stuck in a chair. If you can eat the healthiest that you possibly can, if you can move as much as you possibly can, your weight is going to find its set point. And that might not be what you want the scale to say. However, I think the scale is, I have a scale in my office. I call it a prop because I never ask anyone to get on it. I weigh myself and I have bad words for my scale. So I don't think that weight per se is the best marker of good health.
I would agree to that. I mean, I go to dialysis, so I get weighed in every other morning when I arrive and then weighed out when I'm after. And what they say to me is, we're not looking at total pounds, we're looking at the amount of fluid that your body has when you walk in the door versus when you leave and we're done with the treatment. But it's also not in pounds, it's in kilos. So I know that I have to convert that to pounds, and so I don't think about weight anymore in terms of weighing in, weighing out, or somebody else is doing it, and I just move forward. But I know that television and magazines make us want to be thinner than we actually are. It's all part of the psyche. We see, buff, good-looking people on television series and Netflix, and we want to look like them. But how do you establish what your healthy weight should or could be?
First of all, to speak to what you just said about the media, you have to realize that photographs are they're altered, and people who are on TV are wearing ridiculous shapewear to try to hold in all of their lumps and bumps. And what we're seeing is not real. More people look like me than don't look like me, and I don't look like a perfect person. So to your question of how do you establish, I mean, there is an equation that you could use to say, oh, my ideal body weight would be between A and B. But again, I don't want to promote that sort of thinking, because I think if you're aiming for a specific number on the scale and you don't hit it, then you deem yourself a failure, and you're not a failure. If you are doing everything you can to be healthy, then you have achieved a goal. And whatever that scale says, and I tell my scale frequently that she is a liar, it doesn't matter as long as you are being as healthy as you can be.
What are some of the guidelines you would offer somebody to, in terms of eating healthier, in balancing what you're having? I mean, we all want to cheat. We all want to have our junk food, and we all want to have our desserts, but we still have to get at those proteins and the vegetables and everything else. Is there a formula to good eating?
There is absolutely a formula to good eating, and I never call it cheating. I only call it eating. So to super restrict yourself is to, again, set yourself up for failure. So you need to just find a balance where you are creating a meal. Base number one, let's pick a protein. Number two, let's add a whole bunch of vegetables to that plate, and at least make half of your plate some delicious non-starchy vegetables. And then only on a quarter of your plate should you be putting that starch portion, because it is more caloric. We don't need as much of it. Very often we tend to base an entire meal on that starch. So for instance, if you go to an Italian restaurant and you receive a giant trough of pasta with a meatball on top, that is completely the wrong proportions that we should be eating. Your pasta should be a side dish, not your main dish. I love pasta as much as the next person. You just have to make sure that you're not overeating it. Same could be said with potatoes or rice. Very often the vegetables come as an afterthought, and they really should be one of the first thoughts.
A lot of people are leaning towards vegetarian and vegan in their diets, either because they feel that it's an ethical choice or it's a more healthy choice. What are some of the proteins, if you're going into the vegan or vegetarian mode, what are some of the proteins or substitutes for meat protein or poultry protein that you can find in a diet so that you're not always eating meat or poultry or fish?
Well, typically there's different versions of the vegetarian diet. You could be a vegetarian who just does not eat the quadruped animals, but they do eat fish, they do eat eggs, and they do eat dairy. So there's many versions. It could be that they only eat the dairy, they only eat the eggs, they only eat the fish. But I mean, those are three proteins that are fantastic if you don't want to eat like a piece of meat. As for vegan proteins, there's strictly vegan proteins that would be things like anything plant-based. So it's going to be beans. There are grains that contain a good lot of protein. The tofu products, nuts, and seeds. Those are the really good vegan proteins. Also works for vegetarian. But for there's a lot of products out there that are called vegan or vegetarian, and they are kind of made to mimic meat products. So you have your fake bacon and the faux chicken nuggets and the impossible meat and the impossible burgers. They are typically manufactured for taste, not so much for health. So you're going to find that they have a lot of sodium and they have a lot of saturated fat in them to be able to create that meat kind of texture and taste to them. So that's not something that I would recommend jumping towards if you want to be environmentally conscious, but you still want to have something that tastes like meat. Don't do it all the time. Don't make that your only protein is going to be like a impossible burger, because you're going to find that it's very caloric as well. So if you want, I like to say, if you want to be a vegetarian, learn to like vegetables, because very often a vegetarian is more like a carbitarian, where they're just eating the starches.
I've read that people, let's say, that are Italian that live in Italy, or people that are in France, they eat a diet that, let's say, Italy includes pasta, includes rich desserts, includes a glass of wine with every meal, and they tend to be healthier individuals than we in America that seem to eat a lot. Is it portion control that makes these other ethnic diets work in terms of overall, or is there some secret that we don't know about?
Well, it could be that they're more active than we tend to be. I've not been to Europe, so I can't speak to the rich desserts, but from what I've studied, they treat dessert more like a fruit and cheese kind of thing, as opposed to like the rich cheesecakes that we would eat here. I don't know. They also eat later in the day, so I don't know. It's like, sure, maybe one meal is a big, large meal, but I don't think that they eat 3 large meals. It's not really something that I can accurately speak to, because I've really never been there to study it.
You just brought something up. They eat later during the day. Does the time that you consume your food make a difference in how your body processes it?
It can, especially if you have any issues with gastric reflux. You want to make sure that you've eaten 2 hours, stop eating 2 hours before you lay down flat to go to bed, because that can really exacerbate the condition of having that reflux happening. It's a good idea to not eat right up until the time you go to bed. Give your body some time to rest and digest, and then go to bed. Yeah.
Another question somebody asked me, is it better to eat 3 or 4 small meals during the course of a day? Let's say a small breakfast when you get up, a mid-morning meal of some sort, a mid-afternoon meal, and a dinner? Or is it the 3 square that works better on your body?
I would say that is an individual thing. So if your timing of the day just allows you to do that, then yes, go ahead and do that. There's nothing wrong with spreading your calories out throughout the day. Some conditions, medical conditions, will dictate that you have to have smaller meals, because your digestive system is having a hard time processing foods. So those would be conditions like if you've just recently had pancreatitis or diverticulitis. There's people who have had gastric bypass surgery who have to eat very small meals several times a day, because they just don't have the capacity in their stomach cavity to hold much food. If you are prone to having that gastric reflux, or GERD as it's called, then yes, you would be recommending smaller meals, so that you're not filling up that entire stomach cavity and pushing the acid up towards where it just came from, and you want to keep it all down in your stomach. So I think it's what works for you.
There's another question somebody asked me to bring up about eating seasonally. They're somebody who goes to the farmer's market, and at this time of the year, the farmer's market is filled with a lot of root vegetables that are harvested late fall, early winter, or last well into the winter, like root vegetables, potatoes, beets, parsnips, certain kinds of cabbages and chards, versus in the other months of the year where the growing season is active and we're getting things right out of the ground. Does it make sense to eat seasonally from a nutritional standpoint, or does it not matter?
From a nutritional standpoint, we are always saying to eat the whole rainbow of colors in your fruits and vegetables. And that pretty much means eat seasonally, because you're going to get different colors at different times of the year. So like when spring hits and we get our beautiful dark green spinach, and followed by the beautiful purple beets, the red radishes, and then things move on. We have our red strawberries in the fruit world, and then we move on to the blueberries, and then the cherries and the peaches, and thinking of all those different colors. Each color is associated to different nutrients that we need. So the way to get all of them is to eat seasonally. So make sure you get all of your whites and greens and yellows, oranges, reds and purples and blues. It doesn't mean that that's all you can eat during this particular season where we have more of the starchy things going on. We can still go out and get our greens, and we can make sure that we're not just overeating our starches.
But I would think, though, in a way, it does make sense to eat what's being harvested locally. If you want, in January, if you want a nice head of romaine lettuce, it's not grown here. It's grown like in California or Florida, and it sits on a truck for a week before it gets into the supermarket shelves. But a beet that just came out of the ground in western Massachusetts that goes to the supermarket shelf travels less and loses less nutrients in its transport. So I guess it does make sense to eat whatever's being harvested at the moment.
It does. Also, shopping right at a farm stand would be even better. You get the food probably the same day that it's picked. I think that most of the time we're getting our romaine lettuce from the West Coast. Even in the summer, I tend to buy my lettuce at the supermarket as opposed to the farm stand. And that's where it comes from. That's just where it's being grown. So had another thought and it just left my head.
It's funny. I was in Florida a few years ago visiting my family, and in the area where they live on the west coast of Florida, tomatoes are a big crop. And you'd go to the supermarkets, and none of the tomatoes would be local. And you'd go to the farm stands, and the tomatoes didn't look that great. And you say, well, why is it? Where are all the good tomatoes going? And they say, we ship the good tomatoes to New York and New England. And yet, when I walk into a supermarket in January, I find the tomatoes are tasteless. So they must have lost something in the translation from being picked in Florida to sitting on a plane or a truck. I find that if we have farmers markets in the area that are year-round, the stuff that we get, it may be different than what we're used to eating, but it's generally fresh and good.
Mm-hmm. There's couple of ways to transport the produce. One is to spray it with a gas that preserves it, prevents it from ripening too fast. And then it's put onto a train car and it's trucked across the country. And then it could be transported in refrigerated cars, which is essentially keeping it fresh by refrigeration. You'll find that that which came by refrigeration is going to be more expensive. And sometimes we just tend to shy away from that because our grocery bills are huge lately. But you'll also see that in those stores, the produce looks so much better. There's also and I'm not sure if there's anything around here that's doing this, but there are places that are overtaking old warehouses and growing hydroponically and vertically. So it's the plants are not rooted in soil. They're gosh, they're just
They live. Yeah,
how hydroponics works.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of food product that's hydroponically grown in Big Y recently, especially microgreens and vegetable shoots. I went in looking for salad greens the other day, and they had broccoli shoots and kale shoots. And I guess, I mean, you're the expert here. The shoots and the green microgreens are just as nutritionally valid as the full-grown vegetable,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yes, and they're so delicious, and they go great in a salad. Actually, you can put them on top of your pizza that you just baked. You can add them to many dishes. Yes, I wish I knew more about that, but I don't.
Yeah.
But yes, they're very, very. I just love to eat them because they taste good.
As somebody who counsels people that are trying to eat better and eat healthier, a lot of us during the pandemic learned how easy it was to get takeout food, or we're not great cooks at home. What is the value to learning to cook at home? Is the food that you prepare healthier than the food that you get at a restaurant?
Well, it certainly can be, and you have full control over what you're putting in there. If you are a person who needs to watch your sodium intake, restaurant food is not your friend. You really have no control over how much salt is being added to your food. And in the case of any restaurant that has 20 locations or more, they have to make their nutrition information public. So you would be able to go online and you can look it up and you'd say, oh, I'm going to go to McDonald's and I'm going to get this pack of French fries. And it says on this website that it has X amount of sodium milligrams to it. However, that's just a standardized recipe. And I don't know if the person who is manning the fry station is aware of that recipe or if they're just liberally salting to whatever they think it should be. So it's, to say, I got to take it with a grain of salt, haha. You will have better control if you can cook at home. So what are the benefits of cooking at home? It's going to be cheaper because restaurant food is astronomically expensive lately, as are our groceries. However, at least it's a little better at home. Things will be hot when you cook them, as opposed to the lukewarm when they get delivered. It's something that you can do with your family. And that is if you can involve, your spouse or your children in the preparation of the food, that is something that just really it's fun and it brings you closer together. And maybe it encourages you to try different ethnicities of foods, maybe. Like if you had each person choose like a different country and say, let's make a dish from this country tonight, and do that once a week and make it like super fun. But at least you have full control over the ingredients that go in. You can use your healthy fats. You can not use too much salt. You can make sure that you are getting fruits and vegetables. Sometimes when we order out, fruits and vegetables are not included. So I think it's very beneficial to cook at home.
You provide counsel to people in your job who want to eat better or need to change their dietary habits because of a health issue. If somebody is thinking, I need help, I can't change my diet alone, and they need advice from a nutritionist or a dietitian, where do they turn to help? Do they go to the web, or do programs that you work at, like Bay State Noble, offer these kind of services?
We do at Bay State Noble. I'm the dietitian who sees the outpatients. I have 2 days full of outpatient appointments every week. Very often, though, people do go to the web, and you have to be careful when you do that because you have to consider the source of your information. Sometimes it's just Joe Schmo saying something that he thinks he knows, and sometimes it's very credible information. So if you have diabetes, there are probably Facebook pages or groups that you could join, and everybody will chime in with their information or advice. And very often it's good advice. But that's not where I would start. I would start with going to like whatever condition I have to that organization's homepage. So there's diabetes.org or the American Diabetic Association. And there's, especially the diabetes.org, I think is a fantastic website. It's so user friendly. And you just click on the lifestyles tab and it will give you all kinds of advice for how to portion your plate and which foods are the best to eat. And then it goes into recipes. And it's super user friendly. So again, you just have to really consider the source of your information.
Dina, thank you for being here today. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. And I hope that your new year brings you all good things that you look for.
Thank you. Do I have time for one little piece of advice?
Yes, you do.
Wonderful. In the setting of our New Year's intentions, if you can set one positive intention every month, just stick to that for 1 month. Add another one the next month, add another one the next month. At the end of the year, you're going to have 12 changes to your lifestyle. And that is enormous. And make them positive. You can make them, I will add one vegetable to my day. You can say, I will eat one fruit every day. I'm going to make one day plant proteins only. Being positive, I think, is easier to stick to than being negative.
Thank you so much. That's very sound advice, and I think we can use that in a variety of choices that we make throughout the coming year. Thank you. We've been chatting with Dina Dugan from Bay State Noble Hospital. Mara Tobias deserves a round of thanks for setting this interview up. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. I'm Mark Auerbach, and we'll return to On the Mark after these messages. Don't go away.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio
89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to On the Mark, everyone, here on Westfield Community Programming, 89.5 FM WSKB, and our media partners at Agawam Media and Southwick Community Television. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. And today is New Year's Day, and many people woke up this morning with brand new resolutions. I'm going to lose 30 pounds. I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm going to be in fabulous shape in 20 weeks when Memorial Day weekend comes by. But 90% of the people that are making New Year's resolutions this morning are going to break them. And here with us to tell you how to keep them or to make a resolution you can keep are Shauna and Tony from the YMCA of Greater Westfield. Good morning to both of you and Happy New Year.
Good morning.
Shauna, we'll start with you. 90% of the people that make a resolution for today are going to break it by the end of the month. How do you recommend they don't?
So 90% of the time, people make resolutions that are super large and basically biting off more than they can chew, and they very quickly get discouraged and they won't keep up with it. So one of the things as a personal trainer, we try to work with people to do is let them make their lofty goals, but also help them to make more attainable goals so that as they reach those smaller goals, they'll have the momentum to keep going and moving forward to reach the next goal and the next, and then eventually get to that more lofty goal that they've made.
You know, people think, well, I can lose 5 pounds or I can lose 10. And they see all these starvation diets, or they go on YouTube or TikTok, and there's all kinds of things. And maybe they work, but most likely they have a temporary effect. How do you help them find the right kind of way to do it so that when they've lost the weight, it stays off?
I would say, like, and Tony will probably agree with me, anything that isn't something you can maintain in a lifestyle is never going to stick. So yes, you can lose the weight right away, but if you do extreme measures, you're going to eventually fall back because you can't maintain that. Like, willpower will only get you so far. If you make smaller changes that you can keep over time and you keep it as your lifestyle overall, then you're more likely that loss of weight or whatever they're looking for is more maintainable. But it's ultimately you have to look at it as not a temporary thing, but a lifestyle change. So if you're not willing to keep it up for the rest of your life, it's not going to work for you.
Tony, when somebody walks into you and says, I need to lose 30 pounds and I need to get buff, and you and I were talking before the show, guys tend to be at their prime when they're in their mid-20s, and then it's all downhill from there. Somebody walks in and they say, is it diet or exercise, and how much do I have to do to maintain? What are the simple steps that you can tell them to maintain that will help them get their mindset turned around so they can move on?
Consistency. We weren't educated in school by showing up the first couple weeks and spending 10 hours there, taking in all the information. We were educated by showing up every single day for 12 some odd years and making those small increments. And your fitness is going to be no different. We have a tendency, January 1st, we spend 10 hours in the gym, we hurt, maybe we go back the next day, but that quickly falls off. Going in and just creating that consistency, something you can maintain day in and day out, that's when you're going to start to notice the changes. That's when you're going to start to reach those goals you set.
What are some simple exercises you can do to keep your heart rate going if you're not able to go to the gym for 2 hours every day?
Body weight exercises. All the equipment we have in the gym, it's fun, it's exciting, it's new, but that stuff you only have access to maybe an hour a day or 2 hours a day, if you're lucky. We have access to this, our body, every single moment of every single day. And it's far more functional to be able to manipulate and control the body that we have to carry around with us all day, every day. So we have squats, sit-ups, you can get down on the ground. We have leg lifts. There's a whole bunch of things you can do in a chair, range of motion, flexibility. You don't actually need anything in a gym. You have access to everything you need to get a good workout anywhere in a 4x4 cubicle if need be.
I found a thing where you have the bicycle pedals and a little machine you can put under your desk, and then you can put it on your desk to work your upper arms out. So I can't do it here in the studio, but when I'm at my desk in my office, I can pedal. And it's not the same as being on an exercise bike at the gym or on a real bike outdoors, but it keeps my circulation going. And I don't think about it. If I'm sitting at home watching a television show, I don't think about the fact that I'm pedaling.
Yeah, and anything you choose to do, whether it's just putting the bike under the desk, anything you do is going to be more than if you just didn't do it. So all those little things, you could put a pack of or 2 5-pound dumbbells under your desk, and you got a few minutes. You can hit some shoulders, some arms. There's lots of options. Very convenient. How
much time doing these little things that you can do without the equipment does it take a day to keep stable and maybe move a notch ahead?
Well, the current recommendations right now are to do at least 150 minutes a week. And more than that, obviously, would have a greater benefit for minimally just for baseline health. The goal is to do 150 minutes a week. So that could be, 10 to 20 minutes, at least 5 days a week.
Yeah, 30 minutes, 5 days a week.
Yeah. And let's move towards diet. People want to lose weight. There are quick diets that you can lose 5 pounds in a day or two. And these intermittent fasting diets, but they don't work in the long run. How would you change somebody's eating habits slowly so that they can get used to them so that they eat better 6 months from now?
I think finding things that you like, if you're forcing yourself to eat something you hate, you're not going to keep it up. But finding swaps you can make that you can live with, that you like, that tastes good, like I said, it's all about the long-term consistency. You're not just doing this for 3 months to get ready for, I hate the term beach body because it's your body no matter what, but like the term beach body, get to that thing. You want a lifelong health improvement. So little changes over time that you can maintain, but don't try to go just because this recipe out there, if it has 5 ingredients you hate, you know you're not going to keep eating it. Even though it is very beneficial to you, small changes that you can keep and then do that over time, you'll see the benefits in the long run.
Are there cuisines or diets, that you would say to somebody, maybe eat less of that, but try Asian food because it's smaller portions and more flavorful because of herbs and spices than eating a huge plate of rice and cheese?
I wouldn't say there's so much a certain cuisine to avoid. I mean, we all have our lifestyles that have been built in, ethnic-wise or otherwise. I just think the small incremental changes, especially when you're talking about taking things completely out of your diet. I hear all the time, I'm taking sugar out of my diet. I mean, it's not really realistic. There's sugars in just about everything. It's in things that we enjoy as individuals, and we have to live. We have to enjoy our day-to-day, and we're not going to do that. So instead of something like I'm taking sugar out of my diet, choose one thing. Can I take soda out of my diet? And can I live with that for a couple weeks? And after those couple weeks, okay, I feel good. I feel good without that. Can I now take something else? Can I now remove ice cream and go a few weeks? And if I find halfway through that I can't, I need that ice cream, well, that's part of me. That's part of my life choices. That's part of my lifestyle. I need to maybe choose something else, or maybe smaller portions of the ice cream. So those small incremental changes versus completely altering your lifestyle or completely altering your diet because you're not going to stick to it. Anything you try to change that drastically, you're not going to be able to change. You're not going to be able to maintain.
I get that because I'm a diabetic, and I learned early on as a teenager, you're not supposed to eat sugar. Well, there's sugar in almost every food, whether it's added and it's a processed food, or whether it's a natural fruit, like an apple or a banana or even a tomato, is high on the sugar scale. So the first thing they taught me was to eat natural foods. If the apple's not been processed, or the apricots or peach has not been canned or frozen or included in something else, it's a better food choice for you than eating the peach and the peach ice cream, and to go for the natural things, but also to look at ingredient labels when you go to the store, because you can find, like, tomato sauce for pasta has sugar in it, and it's always included, but you can find pasta sauces with less sugar to make a better choice. Can you, with the why, as people are learning to reset their lifestyle, can you help them with food choices as well as exercise choices?
We're not, at the Y, we can give general advice as far as food. We wouldn't be able to give meal plans. We're not certified for that. But what we can do is we can collaborate with clients and members and help them to decide what choices in their life can be changed, what swaps they might be able to live with and make. So we can definitely come alongside them and be a like a counterpart to help them and encourage them. But we don't necessarily tell people what to eat because it's a personal choice, and So.
Do you recommend people that they eat in season, for example, and if right now it's potato season and root vegetable season, you're going to get the best quality now than you will ordering a grapefruit that was grown in China and sat on a boat for 8 weeks to come here and just doesn't have the same nutritional value it did when it was picked?
Of course. A lot of preservatives end up in our food for those things that need to stay longer. So for your example of the grapefruit, things that are fresh from the ground. That's why a lot of us, grow our own fruits and vegetables. You can't get fresher and you can't get better nutritional value than what comes directly out of the ground.
Do you grow your own vegetables?
I do.
What do you grow?
Peppers, cucumbers, mostly greens. That's about
How since we're on the topic of diet, how have your diets changed over the, let's say, last 10 years as A, you age, and B, you work in an industry where you're helping people to live better? Has that changed the way you live yourselves?
Yeah, I think it brings an awareness, at least for me, like awareness of what I'm eating, how much of that I'm eating, how I feel after I've eaten certain things. And I've come over time to find I feel better when I eat these certain foods, and I like that feeling. It helps me to be stronger when I'm lifting. I'm not as fatigued after a cardio workout. And when you see those benefits and you want them, that desire to have that feeling overrides the temporary pleasure of that food that maybe I would like in the moment, but over time just doesn't sustain me.
When you're teaching somebody or counseling someone, because you're trainers and you're counseling, you're setting up a routine with them that is obviously customized and personalized to their body types and their goals, but also the limitations they might have. Somebody might have a leg injury and may not be able to do what you might normally prescribe, or somebody may have cardiac issues or, circulation issues, and you're getting them started. Do you start with little goals and increase them, or do you give them the big picture and say, this is how we're going to get to that?
I think both. I think you need to give them that long-term picture. It's just like when we set any other goal outside of fitness or anything else, you want to see what that destination looks like. You want to see where that destination is. But you also need to understand the stops along the way. You need to understand the direction that you have to go the entire way. So, yeah, I think it's important that they have that long-term goal, whether that's 6 months or a year out. But what does a week look like? What does a month look like? So I think those different stops along the roadmap are equally as important. So both of them need to exist.
And what happens after the month of January, where people are starting to drop out, and you're working with somebody who's set these goals and resolutions for themselves, and they're having difficulty maintaining what you're setting up and keeping their mind focused on it? How do you boost them up?
We as humans, we have this need for instant gratification, and that's why a lot of these resolutions break. We don't see the weight that we wanted to come off. We don't look in the mirror and see who we were hoping to see. So giving them that gratification in another way, even if the weight's not coming off. How do your clothes fit? How did you feel coming up the stairs? Are you still putting your hands on your knees when you're done? There's other ways to find gratification other than what the number on the scale says. Mm-hmm. So as a trainer myself, I go out of my way to find those gratifications, even if it's something simple like you couldn't get off the floor before and now you can without assistance. So those smaller wins, they help project you into the next one, or at least staying on the course to get to the next one.
People assume that if they're going to lose the 20 pounds or they're going to get in shape, that you're starting here at point A and you're moving to point B. Aren't there a lot of plateaus that people would go through in a training regimen?
Yes. So there's there's certain principles of fitness that one of them is called overload, like loading. Like we have to consistently be challenging our bodies. If we always lift one certain number of weight and we never change it, our bodies adapt to that weight, and you're going to see changes while your body is adapting. But as soon as your body is adapted to that weight, to lifting it, it just maintains at that point, and that's where your plateau would be. So we're always encouraging people, challenge yourself. It might be just by little bits. Maybe it's by more repetitions. It could be by adding more weight. But if you're always in a constant state of, whether it's in cardio or strength training, always pushing yourself to that point of challenge, then you're going to consistently see improvements.
When somebody walks in the door on tomorrow, January 2nd, and they come to see you, they say, I need to lose 30 pounds, I need this and I need that. And you, as the person that's going to train them, there's a bunch of questions, obviously, you would want to ask them. How do you set up that plan? Do you say, well, you may not be able to lose 30 pounds the way you eat, so if we can't change your eating habits, maybe we can help you lose 20 pounds or 10. How does the interaction go back and forth between you as the trainer and who's going to be the guide and the coach along the way with the person who may have very high expectations of what they can do?
So I'll say most clients that come in for the resolution, they have unrealistic expectations or an unrealistic time frame. I hear all the time, I want to lose 30 pounds, I want to lose 50 pounds. And that's all well and good, and we can definitely do that. But understand that you did not put that 30 pounds on or that 50 pounds on in a month, and we're not going to take it off in a month. That's realistically, you're looking at a half a pound, maybe a pound for if you're bigger in a week. So if you're looking for 30 pounds, understand we're looking at 30 weeks at bare minimum. And just, again, creating those small increments along the way. 5 pounds in 5 weeks or 5 pounds in a month. Once that's off, now we can go to the next 5. So I think you don't want to dismiss their goals because it's important to them. It's what brought them in the door. You can't dismiss that, but you need to create the understanding of a realistic goal, both long-term and short-term. And that's going to hopefully help them continue to progress through that journey.
And how important is it to keep, let's say they come to you and they want to lose 10 pounds and they reach that 10-pound mark. How long do you work with them afterwards so that they maintain it?
I think that goes up to the individual. Mostly I find when people hit a goal that it creates that motivation that they immediately want to set the next one, whether that's another weight loss goal or something else entirely. And then we just kind of change focus to continue to hit those goals.
Shauna, what are some of the programs and services that the Y offers to people that want to make a New Year's resolution to be better at what they do?
So I'm glad you asked because we actually have a brand new program that we are starting here in January called the Personal Best Quest. We already have existing programs for personal training. We have semi-private for a couple of people. We have small group for smaller groups of people that do it together, and then we have individual. But this one was designed so you could kind of get a taste of both. So Tony is actually going to be teaching once a week a group fitness class for around, our sweet spot is we're looking at about 6 people, teaching them in a group setting. And then there'll also be assigned a personal trainer to have that one-on-one touch as well. And we're going to run it for 3 months, starting in January 7th, I believe. And then we're going to run for 3 months after that. For some people, that'll be the end of their time with us, but we do find that with some clients, they like to continue, that accountability of having a personal trainer, they want to keep going, and we're absolutely up to that. We also encourage them to get involved with group fitness classes at the Y. One of the big draws that makes us unique at the Y is our community. I started myself as a member, attending classes and having those people who recognize that you're there, that know if you're not there and are checking up on you. That can be a motivating factor for people who aren't necessarily seeing the results that they want to see on the scale or otherwise, to keep going. And we find that it helps with longevity.
Absolutely. I can't recommend getting involved in a group setting more. Having a personal trainer is fantastic. It's a support system, but we're paid to be there. In a group exercise setting, you have other people that are sharing your similar goals, sharing your similar struggles, and it creates bonds. It creates a support system that is irreplaceable. Now you're not just going into the gym twice a week to catch your butt whooping. You're going in to see your friends, to watch them succeed so that they can see you succeed. It creates this circle of just
like a camaraderie.
A camaraderie, yes, thank you.
And if people want to learn more about the Y, how can they get information?
You can come in, walk in our doors any day. We're on 67 Court Street. Talk to the front desk. Either Shauna or I are usually there 7 days a week. You can find one of us. You can check out us on any of our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and we also do mailing lists as well, so get involved with those.
And since we only have less than a minute left, if somebody's choosing a personal trainer amongst the people at the Y, or should they choose to go elsewhere, what is the most important thing you'd recommend to them in picking the right trainer?
Somebody you can relate with. We have trainers of different age, different gender, different experience. Finding someone that you can not only work with and has your goals, but also personality. That's a huge part of it. Somebody you can relate to. You spend a lot of time with your trainer, so.
Terrific. We've been talking with Shauna and Tony from the YMCA of Greater Westfield. They're there to help you if you want to make a New Year's resolution to get yourself in shape or lose weight or what have you. And it's a quick step. Go on your social media, call the Y, or walk in the door for information, and they are there to help. Happy New Year to both of you.
Thank you so much for having us.
And thanks for being here. And this wraps up this edition of On the Mark TV and Radio. Peter Coles has been our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach, and we'll see you next week.
One